Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women since 2006. I'm also the best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company InspiredLivingPublishing.com that since 2010 has been dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, and health practitioners a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows as a published author. All of my brands, including this show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. So welcome. You know, I think we'll all agree that every single one of us deserves a life of happiness, peace, playfulness, passion, purpose, and love. We deserve all of the blessings that the universe has to offer. But did you know that your worthiness quotient could be affecting how easily you attract those desires and experiences to you? And today we're going to be talking about the worthiness quotient and why it's important, as well as a powerful 3-step process to raise your quotient so you can live your purpose as a woman leader of love. And joining me today is an old friend, former Miss USA, Terri Britt, the founder of Women Leaders of Love. She's a love expert, inspirational speaker, and a change agent for women. For nearly 2 decades as a spiritual coach and energetic healer, Terri has been guiding women to stop trying to get it right, to win at life, and to raise their worthiness quotients to inner and outer abundance. Terri's the author of several books, including the award-winning The Enlightened Mom, and her newest ebook, Women Leaders of Love, How to End the #1 Massive Mistake Women Make and Unleash Your Greatest Act of Service. She's been seen on shows such as Today, NBC New York, Fox News, and Good Day Atlanta. There's this quote by Terri that I really love that says, "We women have the power to create immense change in our world. We claim that power when we take a stand to stop the performance and become women leaders of love." Welcome, Terri.
Thank you, Linda. I love listening to your voice. You just have this wonderful, soothing voice that just makes you sit here and go, oh, okay, I'm going to create a little sacred space and be here right now with Linda and absorb all of this. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for joining me. You and I have known each other for a few years now, ever since, God, back when 2009, I think, when Aspire first came. And, you know, I've always been an avid supporter of your work. Back when, like you said, your brand was Enlightened Mom. And so I've always loved the energy and the intention behind everything you do. So when I read about the worthiness quotient and everything that you're doing with Women Leaders of Love, I'm like, oh, yes, we need her on the show, because I know from my personal journey that my worthiness issues prevented, or let me say it this way, created a lot of struggle in my early years. So let's dive right in by describing what is the worthiness quotient.
Well, your worthiness quotient is how open you are to receiving love, support, guidance, nurturing from the people around you, from the universe. And most of us say, well, yeah, I'm open to receive, but we're really not. And it's based in the vibration you hold. See, a lot of your listeners, I'm sure, have heard about the law of attraction. And, you know, if you think things and if you hold an intention, if you hold the feelings in your body, then you'll attract things you want. Well, a lot of people are coming up short and they're going, why isn't it working for me? So now they're really getting triggered about their worthiness, right? What's wrong with me? What's happening inside of me? Why am I not good enough? but it's really because it's the vibration we're holding. And what I have seen is that because we're all trying to get it right, because we're trying to win at life and work ourselves to death, that we actually keep ourselves at a low vibration. And in this low vibration, we don't feel enough, we don't feel loved, we feel separate, we feel alone. And in that sense, we come from this space of what's wrong with me, and that's a very low vibration of guilt. We're sitting with this mindset of, that I've got to do something better. I've got to do something different than who I am. And because energy attracts like energy, if we're coming from a space of guilt or something's wrong with me, we're going to attract things that are hard. So we stay on this perpetual hamster wheel of stress and struggle, and in that perpetual hamster wheel, we don't feel worthy. So our goal is to get off that hamster wheel, to quit performing, quit trying to do it right, and to move into unconditional love. And so unconditional love is how we raise our worthiness quotient and move into a high vibration, so we attract things that are loving and kind to us. Linda, you must be coughing. I'm assuming she's coughing right now, because if she went away, I'm assuming she's coughing.
Oh, I'm glad you caught that, Terri. Thank you, because I want to explain to everyone, too, I have this sexy mama voice going on, so I have a little mute button that I can hit when I feel a little tickle coming on. So thank you, Terri, for catching that. And that's what I wanted to say to you, too, Terri, is we are wired to experience all of these things. It's our divine right. It's our divine gift. And
yeah.
We're the ones that need to do the work if we're not experiencing those things. And just, when you just recently shared an article in Aspire about this,
mm-hmm.
What made you, or what really led you to this knowledge that this was a big, important piece in the lives of women?
Well, I started studying energy 20 years ago before anybody was really talking about it. I ended up at an energy school because I was an emotional mess. I found myself always angry, and I didn't like who I was as a mom. So I ended up at this energy school for taking meditation, and boy, my world opened up, and then I went into the energetic healing classes and learned how to read energy. But what I saw is that way back then, that whatever energy I was holding was what I was attracting to me. And so for me to shift my life, I couldn't point fingers at anyone anymore and blame them for my unhappiness or feel that I was less than, because I was the one holding the vibration, right? It was my choice to hold that vibration. So as I started cleaning up my vibration and going within, and the way you clean up your vibration is you get rid of the beliefs that tell you that something's wrong with you, and you let your world become a mirror to you. So if something is showing up that feels hard, that feels difficult, or if you're reacting in any way that is not loving and kind and compassionate, then you know there's a mirror to you, and that you've drawn a vibration to you that is showing you where your vibration is. So as I allowed my daily life to become a mirror and a messenger that and lead me into my heart space and started getting rid of the beliefs that were causing me to be in this low vibration, all of a sudden I started feeling worthy, I started feeling connected, I felt loved, and in this space of unconditional love for myself, I now raised my vibration, which is raising your worthiness quotient. I raised my vibration, and now I was opening up to receive miracles. And because my life got so much easier, and because I could see how it changed my family, it changed the people's lives that I was working with, I knew that this is the missing key, Linda. I knew it was the missing key, that everybody's out there and they're wanting better relationships and they're wanting better careers, and they keep hitting these glass ceilings, and it's because they're holding a low vibration, and it is usually because most of us have been raised to be good. And when we are raised to be good, which is what society says, oh, this is a good kid, this is a bad kid, this is a good kid. Well, we're so programmed that we need to be good that what that does is it causes us to disconnect from who we are, and that sends us into that low vibration of guilt or shame and those lower level energies of something's wrong with me. So we stay on this perpetual hamster wheel of stress and struggle. And when I saw this, and I saw that this is what people don't get, they think, oh, if I go out and I work hard enough, or if I perform hard enough for my spouse, he's going to love me that much more. Or if I do the right thing for my kids all the time, then they're going to love me back. What we're doing is we're actually perpetuating a cycle of pain and stress and struggle. I saw this for myself. I saw this is what was causing my emotional angst as a mother. And by seeing the shift and shifting my worthiness quotient over the years, I came to realize that this is the missing piece. This is the part that no one's paying attention to. Everyone says, if I work hard enough, then I can receive love. No, our main focus has got to be unconditional love for ourselves first, so we can raise our worthiness quotients, attract the things we need to us, and become examples for the people around us to watch and learn.
It's so true. It's almost like we are doing the work from the inside out so we can manifest in the outside world what we're experiencing in the inside. Because right now, if you are lacking any of those things, it comes back to what you said. It's a reflection of what's inside yourself, and we have to start the healing there first.
Right. It is so important, and I think, when we had our presidential election and our world's changing, right? We've come into this whole new energy, and there's been a lot of anger and judgment between different people, that this is the perfect opportunity for us to heal, because everything's bubbling to the surface. And so if we find ourselves reacting to anything, what's going on in our world between terrorism and racism and just all of our concerns that have been coming up over the last so many months, that if we will take them and say, wow, is this in any way a mirror to how I've disconnected from myself? Because we keep talking about separatism and division in our world. It's because it's a mirror to us. Again, everything is a mirror showing us our own worthiness. So if we are reacting in any way, we are being called to say, no more. I've got to go within and heal this divide within myself and get in my truth, loving myself unconditionally, so I can be that expression of love in the world.
And that's why I am doing this radio show and holding inspired conversations with women like you, Terri, because I believe we're all here to help elevate the vibration of the world. And we'll be back in a moment with Terri Britt of terribritt.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. I am your host, Linda Joy, and joining me today is Terri Britt. And right before the break, we were talking about the worthiness quotient and why now more than ever it's up to us to individually heal ourselves so that we can shift the energies of the world. So one of the things that you mentioned is when we do that, we begin to experience the benefits, right? The love, the playfulness, all the things that we've kind of become disconnected from. What are some of the other benefits you noticed in your own life? I know you shared that you noticed it in your interactions with your family. Did it ripple out further than that, or did you first feel it within yourself first? Like, where did you notice it first, I guess I want to say?
The first place I noticed it is when I started meditating, and because it took me out of my head and got me in a space of receptivity to connect to the divine. We stay in our heads so much that we feel alone. We feel as if we have to control everything, do everything. And when I started meditating and opening up to receive that loving wisdom, that higher guidance, for the first time in my life, I felt as if I weren't alone and that I could trust something bigger than myself. So that was probably the beginning place that I started making changes. And then when I transitioned into doing healing work with others, to see them shift, it started in class, when I was in my classes 20 years ago, to see them shift, to see people go, oh my gosh, I get it now. That was huge, because now I realized I had a gift that I didn't know I had, okay? Because I had no idea that I had any gifts. So moving into unconditional love was helping me start discovering my gifts. Well, then I took those tools that I'd learned from the energy school into my home, and now I saw that the walls between my hubby and me that had been really coming up, because we started out as that man and woman that were all crazy about each other, and I like to laugh and say, yeah, we were humping in the apartment complex laundromat when we could shut the door. We were that crazy, wild, and passionate couple. But as soon as the kids started coming into the picture and we got married, it was a different thing, and I went into the typical mom role. I was always mad at him because I felt like he was having the fun and I wasn't. And what I had actually done was just become a martyr. I had become the typical mom where I suppressed myself trying to get it right for everyone else. And what I found is that as I started bringing these tools into my home, those walls that had been built came down. And what was so interesting about it, when you think about unconditional love, you have to go within and look at yourself. You have to get intimate with yourself. And I'm sure you and your listeners, or many of them, have heard that saying, into me see. Intimacy means into me see. Well, for the first time, I could say that my husband, and he's now passed away. We were married for 17 years, and I'm remarried. But for the first time, I felt like we were actually seeing into each other. And so our marriage shifted from you're wrong, I'm right, and this battle and the tug of war and always trying to get it right, to where what I call putting God first in our lives. And what that meant for us was not, because I was brought up in a religious background where putting God first meant you put yourself on the back burner. We had a different definition of it. Putting God first was honoring and loving the way you were created and being so in alignment that you now opened your heart up to your partner so that you could share that intimacy. That to us was us putting God first together so that we would grow and learn from each other. We quit blaming one another, whereas in the past it would be like, you're doing this, you're doing that. Instead, with this new awareness, it would be, wow, I'm really reacting to what's going on right here. Will you be a sounding board for me so I can vent to you what's going on, so I can get to the root and the belief that is causing me to react in the first place?
Whoa.
That was huge.
It's beautiful that you had a partner also who was as committed as you were to wanting that transformation.
Well, I had to kind of put the gun to his head because at first he was resistant. He did see me changing, but I was his third marriage. And so when he just, it was like, oh man, you're going to make me look at this stuff again. I've already been through therapy with my exes and stuff like that. But I said, I really need you to step up because I want our family to be peaceful and loving. I'm tired of the anger that we're both carrying. And he stepped up because it just needed for me to be, really strong in my boundaries of what I was willing to have for our family, and I was not willing to have the anger and the judgment and the blame anymore. So he stepped up, and yes, and sometimes people don't. Sometimes they drag their feet a little bit longer. Sometimes they don't step up at all, and that's when you know that the vibrations are no longer a match. and to be thankful that you are growing and expanding and the person is maybe not ready to. And I think that's what's hard for a lot of people is, I'm afraid to make changes. The thing is that when we make the changes and we start loving ourselves and moving into a higher worthiness quotient, beautiful things show up. So if the relationship you've been in isn't working and that person doesn't want to step up, then something down the line will show up that will be even more loving because it'll match the higher vibration you're holding. But to go back to your question, Linda, is as I started seeing, at first when I got the healing school I was in, I was becoming an intuitive, and some people didn't like that. They had judgment on it, and they were a mirror to my own judgment. But I just kept holding my space and healing my beliefs around being an intuitive. But what was interesting is I have one friend in particular who kind of pulled away back then, and then all of a sudden, several years later, she came back to me and said, I have been watching you from afar, and I want what you have. I want you to show me what you're doing. Because she saw such a transition in my life from being a control freak and angry all the time to a person who was walking in peace and passion and playfulness, because now I trusted that I was enough and I trusted that I was protected and loved. So that was really interesting. And then with my clients, what I started seeing is, especially with the Enlightened Mom, which was what I was doing when I first started seeing the big shift with people that I was affecting, is that I would see women come into my courses that their marriages were on the brink of divorce. They were struggling with their kids. And literally within a 6 or 8 week period, depending on how long I was doing the course for, their lives would change so dramatically, and they would get so grounded in the tools that I would see their marriages come together and now thrive. And there's one couple that stands out to me because I had been teaching them, and she came into my class. She had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of issues. Their marriage was really struggling. So she took my Enlightened Mom course. She made complete shifts, had miracles start showing up immediately. Well, when the economic recession happened in 2008, her husband was in real estate, and she said, I saw her sometime after that, and she said they actually more or less breezed through it, even though real estate was one of the first things to go, down the drain, especially in Florida, because they had a little bit of a savings, and instead of going into fear with that economic recession, they made a decision to see it as a gift, which is what we always talk about, is see the gift. And they made it an opportunity for him to go work with the kids and their athletic teams, and to let it be a time of family time, so that when the recession started turning around, he was one of the first people that had people coming in from out of state wanting to do work with him, so that he never truly suffered through that recession.
That's all about vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And I love hearing examples of that because I've experienced it in my own life, and how important it is that even when it's hard to do the inner work. And when we come back from break, Terri, one of the things I want to talk about is what you just happened to mention, is sometimes women, especially women, are afraid to rock the boat. They're afraid of change. And I was one of those women, and I think it's really important that we cover that.
Okay.
So we'll be back in a moment with Terri Britt of terribritt.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Riebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com. and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTRFM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and today we're talking about your worthiness quotient, how much you love yourself, how open are you to receiving love, happiness, joy, and the abundance of the universe. And joining me today for that conversation is Terri Britt. So, Terri, I want to dive into something that you said before the break about sometimes women are afraid, right? They're afraid to rock the boat. They're afraid to speak their truth because they're afraid of the change that might come. And what I see a lot in my community and hear from women is they know they're being led to something bigger, whether that is create a business that serves people or shift how they're showing up in their relationship, but they don't take the inspired action to move forward because they start doing the what if game. Well, what if I change and then he leaves? Or what if I change and I leave my job and the business is this? And I'm like, wait a minute. That's focusing on fear and lack, not love. And what you're valuing, you're not valuing yourself if you're keeping yourself small in any area of your life. Do you see that same thing in your clients and in your community?
They're terrified. That's one of the biggest things that comes up is speaking your voice and speaking your truth, because as children, a lot of times if we speak our voice and speak our truth, we get spanked, we get punished. So we take on this programming as children that if I speak up when I'm not supposed to, that I am going to suffer. So we grow up, we become adults, and now we struggle with that because that there's always that subconscious fear, whether we know it's there or not, that if I speak up, I am going to suffer. And oftentimes that's what happens because that's the vibration we're holding, because it's based in the belief and the feelings that are in our subconscious minds. This is why it's important to do the inner healing work so you can get to them and see what's under there. And so this is what shows up, right? Well, it's interesting because I had that same thing, Linda. I know I seem pretty outspoken now, but I was that same person. I mean, I was raised to be a good girl, and you did not rock the boat. You did not speak up. You didn't do anything that was going to possibly cause harm to other people. But for me, what happened for me is I would suppress. But I'm a Scorpio, and I know you're a Scorpio, and you might have been this way. I don't know if you did this, but what I would do is I would suppress until I would explode.
Yeah, especially in my 20s and 30s before I got on this path. Yes.
Whew. I put my fist in my boyfriend's window when I was younger. I mean, I would smack my late husband, God bless him. He was a 250-pound gorilla, and I can remember going up and trying to hit him, and he'd grab my hand and say, "Is that all you got?"
Yeah, it's like you didn't know how to honor your truth in a way that was healthy, so then it would show up in a whole different way.
Exactly. It showed up in a way. And this is why it's not good to be good, because I would try to be good, and then I would spew my pain onto everyone else, and that is not love. So we have to get over that, okay? We have to say being good is not the loving thing to do. Being truthful is the loving thing to do. And this is what women miss. And I have to tell you something. I have the most marvelous blessing come a couple of years ago. I went to listen to, it was actually a course because I'm writing my next book, and I wanted to hear some masters at bringing out books and how to properly market them. And these two, it was a team of people, three of them that were speaking, but they brought out this paperwork that showed us their venture partners, their joint venture partners, meaning people who helped to bring out their books when they became bestsellers. Well, interestingly, when I shifted my life years ago, my late husband one day said, I don't want to be an achiever anymore. I want to be a seeker. I want to let everything go. And we did. We let everything go, and we were holding a high vibration. Our house sold without ever going on the market. Well, he took a year and a half off. He said, I want to do something bigger than myself. I want to do something for the planet and God. Well, lo and behold, some people showed up on our doorstep and said, we have an idea for a company, and you're the man to create it. And that company was called Conscious One. It doesn't exist anymore because when he passed away, the company went away. But Conscious One was one of the first self-help spiritual websites in the world to bring out messages for people, to heal. People like Neil Donald Walsh and Doreen Virtue and Sonia Choquette were some of our first people on the actual site. Well, that was all wonderful, right? I mean, it was all good. Well, years later, a couple years ago is what I'm talking about, I'm reading this joint venture thing of these people on the marketing plans, and lo and behold, it says Conscious One.
Wow.
And Linda, it took my breath away. And the reason it took my breath away is because I said, I did that. Because when I made a decision to heal, and when I made a decision to become a woman leader of love rather than a woman who was always trying to be good, it changed my life, but then it changed my husband's life. And he stepped into his life calling. Thankfully, he got to have that before he died. But then he helped. It was Chris and Janet Atwood who did the Passion Test. He helped them bring out their best-selling book that touched millions of people's lives because he was one of their partners in launching their program. But
that's the ripple effect, that when we do the hard work and ask ourselves questions and are honest with our answers, look at the impact we can have. Look at the impact you had that rippled down to your husband and then out to the world.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, when I saw that, it literally took my breath away. I started crying as I was sitting there reading this, and in that moment I knew, and it was interesting because at that same event is when the term Women Leaders of Love came to me. It was that same event and that I got that divine download, and that we women, when we take a stand for rocking the boat, but not with anger, not with judgment, not with pointing fingers, but with knowing that we are putting God first by loving and honoring ourselves and standing in our truths, that we are becoming examples for other people to watch us and learn. I got so grounded in that moment that it shifted my whole life.
I could just feel it. I could just feel how much of an impact it had on you. And now look at the work you're doing with Women Leaders of Love and the Worthiness Quotient. The ripple continues. Yeah,
it really does. I have to tell you one other thing. When I came back from that event, my husband now, Charlie, that we've been together for, 9 years, 10 years now, I don't remember. I came back. And he's a sweet, sweet, gentle man who was a man who always gave himself up in relationships. He had been married 17 years. His wife committed suicide. And when my husband died, it was about 5 years after his wife died, he said, let me support you. We were friends, kind of distant friends. Well, we ended up getting married. I mean, passion showed up. I had been working on passion about my life, and he showed up, and boy, did passion arrive. But what was interesting is when I came home from that event, he comes up to me and he said, I've been doing my angel cards. And he says, and I keep pulling soulmate. And I haven't understood why, because I knew you were my soulmate. He said, so I've been meditating on it and asking what it is. And he says, I get it now, Terri. He said, all these years, I knew you loved me. He said, but what I didn't realize is that I couldn't really receive your love. and I didn't receive your love until you taught me to love myself. And he says, and now I realize how much I can actually feel your love.
Whoa. And I want everyone to sit with that for a moment, because that's what we're all yearning for, right? To heal that part of ourselves so that we can truly experience the love of others. Not just say a word, hey, I love you, but I mean to really receive it. Mm-hmm. What a beautiful gift. I would have been bawling like a baby at that time.
Well, he was crying and I was crying, so it was beautiful. And when I think of my hubby crying, his little chin starts always quivering, and he gets real, his eyes start watering, and he just, he feels so deeply. I'm so blessed to have, I've been very blessed to have men in my life who feel deeply, and he feels deeper than anyone I've ever known. And to have that connection and that kind of intimacy is so sacred. It is the most marvelous thing to experience, to have that kind of love that you can share with someone.
It's such a powerful story, and feel so blessed that you shared it here with me, with our listeners, because I always have believed that through storytelling, right, we share the essence of who we are. So thank you for that. And as we segue over to the break, when we come back, I want to talk about how some ways that listeners can start to shift their worthiness quotient. And we'll be back in a moment with Terri Britt of terribritt.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you being called to live a bigger life? A life that fills you with passion and purpose? Are you constantly telling yourself that the life you have now should be good enough? Dream Life designer and life coach Karen Spacies is passionate about empowering women to rediscover, reawaken, and realize their life's desires. Karen knows firsthand the blocks and limiting beliefs that may come up when you follow your heart. She went through them herself when she walked away from a 24-year leadership role to follow her passion, live authentically, and create her dream life and business. Today, Karen successfully guides and supports her clients in designing and creating the life they envision. Stop by KarenSpacies.com to schedule a complimentary discovery session and learn how Karen can support you in creating your dream life. KarenSpacies.com.
This is Terri Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. I am Linda Joy, your host, and I'm in the midst of a beautiful and sacred conversation with Terri Britt. And we're talking about love. We're talking about opening your heart to receive it so that when you truly receive it, you can be a catalyst of change and love that creates ripples out into the world. So for all the listeners who are wondering, okay, Terri, I get this. How can I take active steps to start to shift my worthiness quotient?
That's a great question, because it's I think we're so in our heads that our goal is to get into our hearts, and the first thing we have to do is we have to redefine love. This notion that if I give myself up, that's the loving thing to do is not the loving thing to do. And I think I've given some really good examples of that today, of how when I was living by that rule, I was taking my pain out on the people around me, and when I shifted it, it became the greatest gift to them. So we have to redefine love and look, and I want to invite you guys to think about right now, how am I living my life? Am I living my life believing that being good is the loving thing to do, that I need to deny myself or I need to not honor my voice or rock the boat? I mean, if you're doing that, I want to encourage you to stop and just be aware of where you're doing it. And then the second step is to stop the performance. And the performance is that we are not rocking the boat. We're keeping our voices shut down. And so I want you to think about, where are you performing in your life? So I've given you a lot of examples today. I mean, I would suppress my voice, and then I would blow up. So if that's something for you that you do, then think about, I perform, I do this. So here's a cool little exercise. Make a column, and it says the performance. And then on the other column, you say, what would love do? The new definition of love. What would the new definition of love do? And so you write down where you perform, and that can be, maybe you sit at your desk for 10 hours without taking a break. You're performing. Who are you performing for? That's one question you want to ask yourself, but you're performing. And then you say, okay, now what would a new definition of love do? It would be to get up and take a break. It would be to get up and go eat. It would be to get out and go outside. It would be to get up and go shopping, whatever works for you. It would be something that is other than what you're doing, because what you're doing doesn't feel very loving. So that would be the second step, is to say, where am I performing and what would a new definition of love do? Now, it's easy to write it down, but a lot of times we know what we need to do and we don't do it. One of the things that I want to share with you that I've learned over all of these years is that it is by becoming that divine mother to ourselves, having compassion, having gentleness, looking at ourselves with the eyes of God rather than with the eyes of judgment. It is looking at ourselves that way and treating ourselves and taking inspired action that we nurture and love ourselves into alignment, into alignment with God, where that raises our worthiness quotient, and that's where we become women leaders of love. So it's redefining love, stopping the performance, and then nurturing yourself into abundance. Those are the three things. So this is an easy little exercise that you can start doing in your life and going, where am I performing? What would a new definition of love look like? And how do I take action to nurture myself into abundance? Because when you do that, when you nurture yourself and you move into alignment, that's when you feel connected. That's when you feel as if you belong. You now feel nurtured, loved, and supported, because the little girl inside of you is actually being mothered the way you've always wanted to be nurtured. And in that space of connectedness, we now are feeling as if we're worthy. And so our worthiness quotient moves up, 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 up. And because we're in this space, we now open up and receive things that are of equal vibration. And that's when the miracles start showing up, and that's when our life flows with grace and ease. But it means we have to redefine love, stop the performance, nurture ourselves into alignment with God.
I love that. Nurture yourself into alignment. Just the words, I mean, it just speaks to you at such a core level, because it isn't about forcing things. It's about love and nurturing and allowing and receiving, and, that's all the feminine energies, which is what love is all about.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I first brought out the Enlightened Mom, I was having a lot of miracles show up. I had TV people, infomercial people land in my lap. I'd had visions of infomercial stuff coming and landed in my lap. I even had PBS people talking to me. And if I'm going to be really honest here, I kind of shut everything down, because they would ask me, what are you selling? And I had just been what I considered a channel, because all this information was coming through me and I was living it and teaching it at the same time. And even though it was written in the Enlightened Mom book, which actually won Best Spiritual Book of the Year at New York and San Francisco book festivals, even though it was at the very beginning of what I was selling, I couldn't put my finger on it. And it wasn't until I got really sick and I was guided to go to Spain after asking for a kinder, gentler way, because I had this really weird disease called Chiari malformation, and in the States they take out the back of your skull. And I didn't want to have it, so I put it off for 2 years, and then I finally said, okay, God, if there's a kinder, gentler way, show me the way. And I'm at the mall, and I meet some people talking to them, and they tell me they've got a son who's sick. And I said, what's wrong with him? And they said, well, he's got this disease called Chiari malformation. Of course, I'm in shock because I'm hearing this. And then they tell me about this doctor in Spain that did a cutting-edge surgery that was 45 minutes, and I was out of the hospital. But what ended up happening over there when I went to Spain is I stayed in a monastery because I was guided to it. And as I stayed in it, I asked, why am I here? Why did you bring me here? Because I've been getting the guidance for months about a monastery, and I started reading about the monastery, and it says the Divine Mother takes you to God. And I was like, that's interesting. And then the next thing I saw and heard in my journaling and my meditation was, and this is what you've been teaching, is that being the Divine Mother, which means loving ourselves unconditionally, is what takes us to God. And that's what puts us in a high worthiness quotient. And it was in that moment that I finally got to the bottom of what we're all missing, and it is that we are focusing on everything else rather than loving ourselves. And unconditional love for ourselves is the answer for everything we seek.
Terri, I'm speechless right now, and I have tears in my eyes, and I need to share something with you. It's not something I usually share on the air. But before every radio show, I draw a card for my guest. And normally, I share that card after the interview is over and we're off the air, because to me it's personal about what came through. And I'm crying because I'm staring at it. It's Mary Magdalene. Unconditional love. Love yourself, others, in every situation, no matter what the outward appearances may be. And I've been staring at it all this time, and then you started talking about that. I'm like, a tear just streamed down my cheek, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And this picture is so gorgeous of her. It's just love. And I wanted to share that. I wanted to share it not off the air because it was too important not to share.
That's beautiful. Oh, wow, what a gift. That's so cool.
Well, it's a gift, and I also believe that we're always receiving divine validations.
Yeah.
And just like you've received them multiple times, including that time at the monastery. Look at the work you're doing now.
Yeah.
Right? It's all because you trusted and kept following the guidance.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, the biggest judgment I had on myself of not loving myself unconditionally was that I was an intuitive healer, because I had a lot of religious programming about it. And as I kept chipping away at that programming and embracing my gifts, I realized that being the Divine Mother to myself and bringing in that energy and moving into unconditional love has helped me to open up deeper to my intuition and receive divine guidance. And that's what makes our life flow with grace and ease. So it was moving through that judgment and finally being knocked over the head with a cosmic 2x4 in a monastery in Spain.
Oh my
that
God.
I finally got it.
Yeah, but and look, you got it at such a core level, right? Like at a soul level. That once you allow that to touch you that deeply, you cannot go back to the person you were before that moment.
No.
That's what I've discovered for myself. I may not have wanted the transformation to come, because sometimes, when you're shifting major things over the last 25 years, there have been times that transformation was painful. But I can look back now and say, thank you, I see where you were leading me.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
thank you, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I, as I said, when I got that hit for Women Leaders of Love, it was like, this is why I'm here, because we women, and those men who are listening who are connected into that divine, we are the ones who are going to be the catalyst for change now. We're hearing more and more, we need more love on the planet. But we women, I believe, are the ones who have kind of set ourselves up for failure, because our mothers, we've watched our mothers deny themselves, and we take on the belief that this is love, and so we keep perpetuating this. And if we women will take a stand like I did in my marriage with my late husband and say, no, this is what we've got to do, this is the change we've got to create, then we change it within ourselves and we change it within our families. It runs out into our communities and it goes out into the world. I mean, you heard me tell those stories. So we are being called. I really, truly believe we're all being called to step into our leadership roles. And some people say, well, I don't know how to be a leader. I just gave you 3 steps to start raising your worthiness quotient and to step into your greatest act of service. It's redefine love, stop the performance, and nurture yourself into alignment with God. That's how we do it.
Wow. It's so powerful, and those are all steps that we can all do, and we can start where we are, right? Be gentle with yourself. Take the first step. I mean, I know I can say this for myself, and Terri, tell me if this is true for you. We didn't 25 years ago step on this path and know that we were going to be doing the work we are doing now, living the life we are living now. We just took that first step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and kept trusting and believing and redirecting. But it all comes, every guest that I've had on this show and all the things that I've done over the last 10 years, the biggest thing a lot of people say how they changed their life, how they transformed their heart or healed their bodies was they took the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was, I had such a sense of failure about who I was as a person and the fact that I knew I was perpetuating pain in my family, that I didn't love myself enough to do it at first. I loved my children.
You nailed it. That's why I did it too.
Yeah.
I wasn't strong enough and didn't love myself enough to want to change my life for me. But then I looked at the eyes of my daughter, who was at that time 10 years old, and said, what the hell am I doing? This isn't, I don't want her to be in a relationship where she thinks this is normal, and I left.
Yep.
I went, but I didn't leave for me because I wasn't strong enough. But that helped me make the decisions later on in life so that I could attract Dana, who I've been with for 21 years, who's my best friend and soulmate, and who is also my daughter's best friend. So what a blessing. She's now 32. And what a blessing to see their relationship, one based on love, you know. So everyone,
look what you just described, though. You just described that you made a decision you were going to be different. You were going to love unconditionally. And without even maybe realizing that's what you were going to do, you made a shift. Yeah. And in that shift, you raised your worthiness quotient, and you attracted a man into your life who matched that vibration and has been your soulmate and traveling this path with you.
Yeah, and that's what I want for everyone. And as we come to our time together, Terri, there's something I want to share because I think it's so important. On your website, they have an opportunity. Every woman right now, I want you to run over there because I think it's so important. You have the Worthiness Quotient quiz, and I want to give that URL because I think it's so important for women to do this. Give this gift to yourself. And it's www.theworthiness.
Oh, wait. Let's make it easier on them.
Go ahead,
Let's stop right there because we've got a better URL than that. It's just go to terribritt.com/quiz.
Ooh, I like that even better. Thank you, Terri. So, again, I'm going to say that for everyone. That's Terri Britt. Let me spell that. TerriBritt.com/quiz. And Terri, thank you for being here today, but for opening up your heart for this time together and for all the listeners. Love the work you're doing in the world, so thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me. And everybody who's listening, thank you for being here and making that commitment to take the time and create a sacred space and bring love into your life and onto the planet because you're being a leader of love, whether you realize it or not. And I just want to say thank you. So thank you, and thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Well, everyone, until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.